Well, absolutely, but don't even believe that there were 5 options. What you really saw were Harry's and Meghan's fantasy narrative, which they call the truth. What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was cheered as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British royalty and all the values of the Queen and all the tradition and 1,000 years of history. So people were cheering not just the person, but also the institution.
Devastating moment for Prince Harry's reputation and credibility, as he argues with a judge while in the dock, contradicts himself, appears to fib about using the pseudonym Mr. Mischief.
He lost at the trial court level on this push to make the British royal family pay for his security when he goes to the UK.
Once they realise that myself, my wife and our kids are happier outside of the institution, please just look at the fact, look at the risks, look at the threat, look at the impact that if anything was to happen to me, my wife or my father's grandchildren, look where the responsibility lies.
What a manipulation. My father's grandchildren. They're going to and it will be his fault.
It's gaslighting on a grand scale.
It's almost like Harry 2.0 is Brooklyn Beckham. Have you seen any of this action where...
Yes, I'm into it.
I'm so
very
into it because he doesn't talk to his father, fall out with the father.
He holds on to these terrible, unhappy moments with Meghan, who he says, she's absolute misery, but that's not true either. And she wasn't around in the late 1990s. I mean, it's a sort of extraordinary way of behaving.
He wanted half in, half out. He wanted his own cake and eat it. And the royal family said, no, you're either in the royal family or not in the royal family.
April 2025, she said it's the happiest she's ever been. She's having a wonderful time. She can't believe it, and she's happy and grateful. Now, what sort of idiot would say that in court when he talks to the person herself has given something completely different?
The more Meghan must have been convinced of her importance to the monarchy. Do you still think she's that delusional? And maybe the answer is watching her at Kevin Costner's 805 Live event in $300,000 worth of jewelry, including Diana's Cartier watch.
Wherever she is, whether it's at Costner or in Colombia or in Nigeria or wherever, she's always, her publicist will reveal that she's wearing one of Diana's pieces of jewelry.
Another wave of drama has just slammed into Meghan Markle's world, and the timing could not look more chaotic. Royal biographer Tom Bower has come out with fresh criticism that reportedly left Meghan furious, all while Prince Harry was in a London courtroom looking emotional and under pressure. At nearly the same moment, Meghan's Netflix cooking and lifestyle project was losing steam, and Bower stepped in with what he says is the real reason the whole thing failed so badly. And in his version, this was never just about weak ratings or a slow audience response. He made it sound like a much bigger collapse of image, credibility, and public interest. This is what makes the story feel heavier than one cancelled show. Critics are not treating this like a simple entertainment miss. They are treating it like a sign that Meghan's much-hyped Hollywood reinvention may not have connected with the audience the way she and Netflix had hoped. That is the real sting here, because when you have global name recognition, non-stop press coverage, a huge streaming deal, and still fail to turn curiosity into lasting success, people start asking very uncomfortable questions. So here is where it all starts. Tom Bower, the author of Revenge.
Prince Harry, his heart seems to have softened, or there's been some sort of evolution. So I do think you're right that a lot of us were kind of caught off guard by the Prince Andrew decision, because we had grown accustomed to cuddly Charles, Grandpa Charles, with the grandkids in his lap. And when I saw the news, I thought, I don't know if I'll ever see anything like this again in my lifetime, but maybe I will because of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
And even the publishers couldn't quite believe some of the things which I discovered. And one of the big things at that time was sensitivity reading. There was a great fear that she would play the race card.
Meghan, Harry, and the war between the Windsors gave an interview where he explained why he believes Meghan's Netflix show fell flat, and he did not soften his words at all. He spoke in a way that instantly grabbed attention because it sounded less like a routine review and more like a full takedown of the entire project and the image behind it. Bauer said, "It turns out she's not any kind of talent." That was the line that really exploded online. It was blunt, harsh, and designed to make people stop scrolling. But Bauer did not present it as some random insult thrown out for shock value. He framed it as the conclusion he reached after spending years researching Meghan, looking into her career, and speaking with people connected to her life and work. According to Bauer, he interviewed more than 80 people who had known her, worked with her, or dealt with her professionally. In his telling, that is why he feels so confident saying what he says. Now, to be fair, that is still Bauer's view, not an established fact. But the reason it spread so fast is because it echoed what many critics had already been saying. For a while now, some viewers have felt Meghan's projects looked polished on the outside, but lacked depth underneath. Beautiful presentation, expensive production, smooth styling, but not much spark. And once Bauer said it out loud in such a cutting way,
which they've created, and they're going to earn a fortune out of it. And don't forget, there's Harry's book still to come next month. And then at some stage, there'll be Meghan's book. I mean, they're making a career out of this stuff. Professionally, they've gone down dramatically. And I predicted it in the book, but even I would not have thought it'd be that accelerated. I think personally, they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore.
The criticism got even louder because people felt like he had put words to what they already suspected. According to Bauer, Netflix executives may have seen signs of trouble much earlier than the public realised. He claims that within the first 6 months of signing that major deal with Harry and Meghan, doubts had already started creeping in. That is a huge claim when you think about what that deal represented. This was supposed to be prestige content driven by two of the most talked about names in the world. On paper, it looked like a guaranteed hit. But Bauer says the company quickly discovered something that no amount of headlines could fix. Attention does not automatically turn into watchable content. In Bauer's telling, Meghan simply did not deliver material audiences were excited to keep watching. That is his core argument. Not enough pull, not enough warmth, not enough personality to carry an entire lifestyle format. The show with love. Meghan was clearly meant to be a big comeback moment. It was supposed to be polished, elegant, and aspirational, her chance to step into that lifestyle lane and prove she could become the kind of trusted name viewers associate with food, home, and entertaining. This was supposed to be the beginning of something much bigger. The comparisons were obvious from the start. People talked about Martha Stewart.
They bought 12 episodes and you sliced it. What do you? Everybody
Craft
knows
Services
that.
did not come back. The trucks did not drive up the driveway again and relight the whole place.
What I discovered was, of course, that she was hunting for a man in England from 2013, and she wanted wealth and she wanted fame, and she targeted. There's no doubt she targeted Harry.
Ina Garten and that whole world of women who built strong brands by making viewers feel like they were sharing a real space with them. That is not easy to fake. Bauer's point was that Meghan never had that real, rooted authenticity in the first place. He argued that the biggest issue was not the recipes, not the decor, not even the set. It was that the person at the centre of it did not feel believable enough to anchor the show. And that word, authenticity, keeps coming back because it sits at the centre of Bauer's whole criticism. He says Meghan has never felt authentic, and he claims modern audiences are too sharp to miss that. In 2026, viewers can tell when something feels overly managed, overly polished, or overly rehearsed. Once they start feeling like they are watching a brand strategy instead of a real person, they switch off fast. That is exactly the trap Bauer says Meghan fell into with this series. He pushed the point even harder by arguing that the show's weakness was really just a reflection of Meghan's broader public problem. In his words, she has nothing to say, no originality, and not enough genuine personality to keep people engaged. His wording was rough, but the meaning was obvious enough. He was saying the show felt glossy but hollow, pretty but empty, carefully arranged but lacking the kind of natural voice that makes audiences want more. That is a brutal criticism for a project built entirely around one person's image. Bauer also argued that Meghan was trying to present herself as warm, relatable, and deeply centered around family, home, and love. Someone cozy and inviting. Someone the audience could imagine chatting with in a bright kitchen while she cooked and entertained. But critics, including Bauer, have long pointed to the strained relationship with her father, Thomas Markle, as something that complicates that image. He brought that up again here, referencing the period when Thomas Markle had serious health problems while Meghan was filming. In his view, that contrast made the brand message feel harder for skeptical viewers to accept. That is why Bauer framed the issue as hypocrisy rather than simple bad television. His argument was basically this: how do you sell family warmth and home-centered sincerity when critics already believe there are painful contradictions in your own family story? Whether people think that is fair or unfair, it is a question that clearly shaped how some viewers saw the show. And once the audience starts looking at a lifestyle project through that lens, every carefully arranged scene starts to feel a little less effortless and a little more staged. Then came the numbers. And this is where the criticism got even sharper. According to the figures in the script, with Love, Meghan ranked 1,217th on Netflix in the second half of 2025. That is the kind of ranking that sounds almost unreal for someone with so much name recognition. It suggests the show was not just underperforming, it was buried, easy to miss, easy to ignore. That figure quickly became a talking point because critics saw it as proof that the audience simply was not buying what Meghan was selling. The show reportedly pulled only 2 million views in 4 months. On its own, that might sound like a big number, but compared with the scale of the publicity, the level of Netflix's investment, and Meghan's global profile, critics saw it as underwhelming at best. And once people started making that comparison, the online reaction became relentless. Viewers, commentators, and critics all piled on with the same basic point. How does someone with this much attention fail to turn a cooking show into a real success? Even the holiday special, which reportedly did a little better with 2.4 million views, did not change the mood much. According to the script, it still landed around 1,500th on the list. That is not a breakout result. That is not what people expected from someone with a giant platform, major press coverage, and a high-profile streaming deal. To critics, those numbers made the whole thing look embarrassing, especially because Meghan was supposed to have the kind of star power that could pull audiences in without much trouble. Bauer's next argument was that Netflix stayed patient because it hoped for a bigger reward later on. In his telling, the company was not just excited about flower arranging, kitchen scenes, or soft lifestyle content. He says executives believed there might eventually be access to something much larger, something tied to the royal family, private revelations, Diana-related material, or the kind of emotional tell-all that would explode globally. That, he suggests, was the real long game behind the partnership. But instead, according to Bauer, Netflix got polished scenes of Meghan arranging flowers, repackaging snacks, and performing domestic elegance in ways that did not connect with viewers. That contrast is exactly why his criticism hit so hard. In his version, the company expected royal-level drama and emotional weight, but ended up with carefully styled moments that felt too light, too safe, and too empty to justify the hype. That is the kind of criticism that stings because it reduces a major production to something that sounds trivial. Bauer also claimed Meghan came across as flat on camera because everything about her felt too controlled. He says she is not spontaneous, not especially funny, and not naturally warm in the way successful lifestyle TV usually demands. That matters because viewers do not watch those shows only for recipes or table settings. They watch because they enjoy spending time with the host. If the host feels distant, rehearsed, or image-conscious, the whole mood starts to wobble. Bauer says that is exactly what happened here. According to him, Netflix gave Meghan every possible advantage. Strong producers, a healthy budget, creative freedom, a major platform, and a huge opportunity to define the show on her own terms. But even with all that support, Bauer says she still failed to create content people truly wanted to keep watching. That point matters because it cuts off the easiest excuse. Critics cannot say she lacked resources if they believe she had every tool she needed. In Bauer's telling, the problem was never the setup, it was the person leading it. Then his criticism got even more personal. He argued that Meghan struggles to connect with ordinary viewers because she is too focused on image and not grounded enough in a real point of view. To make that case, he contrasted her with other lifestyle names. Martha Stewart built a business empire through discipline and consistency. Gwyneth Paltrow gets mocked all the time, but even critics admit she has a distinct personality and a recognizable voice. Bauer's claim is that Meghan, by contrast, feels like someone acting out a role instead of inhabiting one naturally. He also said people connected to the show described Meghan as difficult, demanding, and hard to satisfy. According to that account, she would reshoot scenes repeatedly because she did not like how she looked, while the actual quality of the content seemed to matter less. Those kinds of behind-the-scenes claims always spread fast because they match the exact image critics already want to believe. Once stories like that attach themselves to a project, they become part of how audiences interpret everything else they see. One detail Bauer shared stood out more than anything else. He said Meghan wanted her hair to look flawless in every single shot, even in scenes where she was supposed to be cooking. For critics, that small image became a symbol of the whole show. Real cooks tie their hair back. Real kitchens are messy. Real food preparation is not always glamorous. But Bauer painted a picture of someone treating the kitchen more like a photo set than a working space. And once that image took hold, it was hard for critics to see the show as genuine. That is why Bauer says the show failed. In his view, nothing about it felt truly lived in or real. Not the setting, not the hosting style, not the warmth, not the celebrity appearances. He pointed to the rented mansion, the rented beehives, and guests who, to some viewers, did not even seem that comfortable. Piece by piece, he argued the whole production came off like a stage display rather than a believable slice of domestic life. And once audiences start sensing that kind of artificial vibe, the charm disappears almost instantly. And here comes the part that makes the fallout feel even harsher. Bauer says Meghan was reportedly furious when Netflix cancelled the show because she genuinely believed it was going to be a success. He claims she thought it would win praise, elevate her profile, and maybe even make her a major name in lifestyle entertainment. Instead, the reaction was cold. The viewing numbers became a talking point, and the entire thing turned into another target for public criticism. If Bauer is even partly right, then the cancellation did not just hurt professionally. It hit directly at the image Meghan was trying to build. And while all of this Netflix drama was unfolding, Harry was in London making an absolute fool of himself in court, which only added more weight to everything Tom Bauer has been saying about this couple from the very beginning. Things got tense fast in that courtroom when Prince Harry gave testimony in his lawsuit against the Daily Mail, and the moment quickly turned into a bigger public spectacle than many expected. The case itself is about alleged phone hacking said to have happened between 2001 and 2013, long before Meghan was part of his life. That is what makes the courtroom drama stand out so much, because this was supposed to be about old media conduct, old claims, and old evidence, yet the attention kept drifting back to the same larger personal story around Harry and Meghan. But here is the moment that really got people talking. During the hearing, Harry reportedly argued with the judge more than once, and it was serious enough that the judge had to step in and tell him to stop pushing back and simply answer the questions. That is a rough look in any courtroom. A high court judge with deep experience in media law having to remind a prince not to argue his case from the witness box is the kind of scene that instantly grabs headlines and sets social media off. The judge's words were especially striking because they sounded like a direct warning to calm things down. He reportedly told Harry, "You're doing what lots of litigants do. You tend to argue back. You don't have to bear the burden of arguing the case today." That line hit hard because it suggested Harry was getting too emotional, too involved, and too defensive in a moment where he was supposed to stay measured and let the legal process do the work. Once that happened, a lot of people started seeing the whole appearance through that lens. Then, the hearing took an even more emotional turn. According to the script, Harry's voice broke during his testimony, and he became tearful as he said, "They have made my wife's life an absolute misery." That line instantly changed the mood, because even though the case is about events that allegedly happened years before Meghan entered the picture, Harry still brought her into the centre of the emotional argument. And the second he did that, critics started asking the same question all over again. Why does everything always come back to Meghan? That is where Tom Bower's interpretation comes in, and his critics will know exactly where he stands on this. Bower has argued before that Harry keeps tying his own battles back into Meghan's story, even when the issue on the table is supposed to be separate. In that reading, Harry no longer presents anything as just his own fight. Everything becomes part of the same shared grievance, the same public conflict, and the same emotional pattern. That is a very harsh view, but it is the one critics kept repeating after this court appearance, and it got even more attention because Meghan was not there with him in London. She did not appear at court to support him in person, and that absence became part of the online reaction almost immediately. While Harry was in a serious legal setting under pressure, Meghan was back in California, and critics used that contrast to fuel even more commentary. Fair or unfair, it fed the perception that Harry was once again taking the public heat while Meghan stayed comfortably out of the direct line of fire. That contrast is exactly why so many people online started calling the whole thing lopsided. Harry looked emotional, tense, and fully exposed in a courtroom, while Meghan was nowhere near the scene. Bower's critics have pushed the idea for a long time that Harry does the fighting while Meghan stays protected in the background, and this moment gave them more material to work with. Whether people agree with that or not, the optics were impossible to miss, and optics matter a lot in stories like this. Then came the privacy argument, and that is where the backlash got sharper. In court, Harry reportedly complained that the media had commercialized his private life, but critics immediately pointed out what they see as the obvious contradiction. This is the same man who released Spare, gave major interviews, appeared in documentaries, and shared highly personal stories about himself and his family in very public ways. That is why so many people say the privacy argument does not land the same way anymore. A lot of that criticism centers on Spare for a reason. Critics say Harry opened the door himself by sharing intimate details about his private life, his family relationships, and painful personal moments that involved not only him, but other people too. So now, when he stands in court and speaks about privacy as something deeply violated, many observers say it sounds inconsistent. In their view, you cannot reveal so much on your own terms and then act shocked that the subject keeps getting public attention afterward. Tom Bower has hit that point many times, and so have Harry's critics. Their argument is simple. You cannot take your personal life to Netflix, Oprah, and a best-selling memoir, then complain that the media keeps treating your private life like a public product. That is the contradiction they think sits right at the centre of Harry's case in the public eye. Legal issues aside, that is the narrative battle he keeps losing with a large part of the audience. The online reaction reflected that mood clearly. According to the script, one comment that got over 1,400 likes said that if Harry truly wanted privacy, he never would have released Spare. Another popular comment said, "Court is for facts, not feelings." Those reactions matter because they show how people were reading the moment. A lot of viewers were not focused only on the legal details. They were reacting to Harry's tone, his emotion, and what they saw as a gap between what he says and what he has already done in public. People also kept pointing out that Harry himself has discussed private matters involving other members of the royal family. That is why critics say it is hard to take the privacy argument at face value now. In their eyes, he has exposed private details involving William, Catherine, his father, and others, so when he now speaks as though his own privacy is untouchable, they call it hypocrisy. That criticism has become one of the biggest problems for him because it directly affects how believable he seems to the public. At the same time, Meghan's Netflix troubles were adding even more fuel to the situation. According to the script, the comments around her cancelled show were brutal, with many people openly celebrating that it was dropped. Some said Netflix had finally made the right call. Others mocked the project as boring and overly staged. And when you put those reactions next to Harry's rough courtroom performance, it creates a much bigger story about public fatigue with both of them at once. That is exactly what Tom Bower has predicted for a long time. He has argued that eventually people would get tired of what critics call Harry and Meghan's victim narrative, the repeated complaints, the ongoing demands, and the polished public messaging. In his view, there would come a point where audiences simply stopped reacting. Not because they suddenly changed sides, but because they lost interest. And according to critics, that point may be getting closer now. Bower's line about indifference is what really sticks here. He has said that the opposite of love is not hate, it is indifference. That idea explains a lot about the mood around Harry and Meghan right now. Some critics are no longer angry, they are just tired of the same themes, the same headlines, and the same cycle. And in entertainment or public branding, boredom can be even worse than backlash, because once people stop caring, it becomes much harder to sell anything at all. He also believes Netflix may not make one big dramatic statement, but may instead keep quietly pulling away. The idea in this script is that the streaming giant could slowly back off without a loud public breakup. Something one commentator called slow ghosting. That phrase fits the situation in a very sharp way. Less excitement, less momentum, less visible support, and less belief that the partnership still has real power. If that is what is happening, then it would match the larger story critics say is unfolding around the couple. Then there is the financial pressure angle, which makes everything sound even more serious. Bower has suggested that Harry and Meghan may be under strain because of failed projects, high expenses, and a very costly lifestyle. Those are big claims, and they are often framed through commentary rather than hard public proof, but critics keep pushing them anyway. In that reading, the new PR efforts, the fresh branding moves, and the attempts to relaunch again and again all start looking less like confidence and more like urgency. The script also argues that Harry could still lose this case, and if that happens, the consequences could be huge. The concern being pushed here is that he may be relying too much on personal feeling and not enough on solid evidence, which is always dangerous in court. If the ruling goes against him, then the legal costs could become another serious blow, and that would make this more than a bad headline. It would turn it into a costly setback at a time when critics already believe the pressure is building on every side. That is why Tom Bower says Harry and Meghan misjudged life outside the royal system from the start. In his view, they left thinking they would have more freedom, more money, and more control, but underestimated how much the royal machine had been doing to protect them. They underestimated the structure, the support, and how hard it would be to build a powerful brand on their own. And when you look at Meghan's show falling flat, Harry's courtroom struggles, and the public reaction getting colder, you can see why critics believe that warning is starting to look very real. If you want the next part, like, comment, and subscribe because this story is only getting messier from here.